Control. The Matrix built to keep us under control. In order to change a human being into this.
Features that they put on here, and they had this crop feature that I kind of put on like this. See that crop feature like this, and I didn't know how to take it off. That's the boomer in me. Sorry about that, people. And it took me a little time there. I had to get on a chat with oh shit, that's the mute. See, there's a lot of new things they got on here that can mess a brother up. Second cameras not set. Oh, okay. They got something in here for cameras too. That could be cool. But anyway, we're talking today about the Matrix Doctrine. We're talking about the government. And here on the Matrix Doctrine, we talk about how the world around us is 100% made up. None of it is real. Just like in the, well, not just like in the movie, because in the movie we were all trapped in a computer program. But in my Matrix, in the Matrix that I'm talking about, it's the things that we make up as human beings in order to try to say that we're so much better than other life on the planet. So the words that we use, the religions that we make up, the words that we make up, the all of the systems of control, well, we didn't intend them maybe at first for them to be systems of control, but they became that way because we so become dependent on these things. As we've become weaker and weaker over time, we've become dependent on these systems to protect us, because we're so terrified, because we're not independent thinkers, people who go out and hunt and provide for ourselves. We depend on others to do that for us, and the government has become that system of control that supposed to make all these things happen, or ensure that these things happen. And maybe we needed that at one point, but we don't need this anymore. And the government has been doing what it wants to for a while, and it's been basically, it's set up for its own purposes. back in the days when we first started the government in this country, there were probably a lot of things that we needed. There were probably a lot of things that we needed in this society to, from the government to protect us. Because you got to remember, the government, when people outside of the indigenous people first came here, they needed protection, not only from the foreign dynasty that they was fighting to leave, but also from the Native Americans who were here before we were too. I can say before we were either brought here or came here. I don't 100% know how it works, but the government was set up after it took a foothold in this country, right? And maybe at that time and time after that, when we was always fighting wars at every small little integer. We've been fighting a lot of wars ever since we first came to this country. Let's see if we can show you what we're talking about. The wars of this country. The wars of America. American wars. American military history. Let's see how many months how long this video runs for. Okay, hold the fort. Okay, now this is just since let's see. This has only been since, I don't think we need to share that. Okay. Only been since, all right, we don't need any volume. This has only been since 1775. So this is just before our independence. And you can see the American Revolution, where we fought the British. And then we fought the Choctaw and the Cherokee, and this goes on. Then the British again. British and the Choctaw. So this is what goes on. This goes on. And you'll see that that's all we've been doing over the last 200 years. 300 years is war on every front. We've always kept wars going. And so maybe, you had a few years in between, 5-6 years peace, and then we went against the Confederacy. Then again, you don't know when these wars ended. Well, I guess they ended at one time because it don't take that long, right? If you really determined, right? Then we was after the Indians. You just kept going, war, taking over every little location, spreading across the land, and maybe we needed government for all of this. You know, you needed government to do all of this. We can keep going. I don't need to show every little detail because we're not trying to show all of the wars. What we're trying to show you is that we've been warring, and maybe we needed the government for all of these times because we were in direct engagements with nations of some kind. Look at that. We fought in the Dominican. We fought in Haiti. Look at all of these. Germany. This is World War One. World War One. Look at we fought Germany or Austria. What's that called? The Ottoman Empire. Okay. I don't even know what the Ottoman Empire is. Okay. And the bulge. Can't see all of it because of whatever this graphic is here. But we've been warring for a long time. The Russian Civil, the last Indian uprising, and then World War II. And it's just been going on. And the reason why I'm okay is hold on, the graphic was there. Let's see if I can World War. Oh, we went too far back. Hold on. I just wanted to see what that Ottawa was. 22. Shamon Creek. Because the graphic explodes and I kind of lost it. Damn it. I wanted to see what that was. Let me check the World War One. World War One. I wish I could just scroll back. It's Bulgaria. Okay. Bulgaria was down with all of that in World War One. I don't know all the specifics of World War One. Maybe I need to get into that and research it a little bit in order to figure out some war tactics and stuff like that. But I wonder if Bulgaria had. I have to find out where the Battle of the Bulge. I know the Bulge. It might be having something to do with American history, but anyway. This is just, again, military. We needed a government, a powerful, strong government to lead us through all of this because maybe not in Vietnam because we was going to other countries. There was no possibility that Vietnam was coming to us. So and Lebanon, all of these things. These are for fighting. See, Cuba, maybe we needed to fight these. Cuba, because this is in our backyard. We fighting off the communists, which we should be doing now, but we've made ourselves weak over the years. That's why I say I don't understand why we still need this government and I'm not trying to overthrow anybody. What I'm talking about is why we need this government in every aspect of our lives. Why do we need to keep Liberia? See, these are all wars that Mike fought in because you got to remember Mike. I'm sorry, I know that I'm kind of sidetracking, but I'm doing research for Mike, the graphic novel, and see in the 60s, Mike was about 30 years old, so he fought, let me see, maybe 10 years from 20s or from the teens to his late teens, say about 18, 19. And I think he might have been he might have gone to, because he might have gone to like military, what do they call that? Military school. So West Point, I think he might have gone. He's a dude that went to West Point. So he would have come in the 50s, I would say. Yeah, so he would have fought in Korea and Vietnam, and he would have fought in a lot of these engagements in the 50s. In Korea, he would have fought definitely in Korea, maybe in the Laotian Civil War. He might have fought in that. And that's, hold on, let me get that back. 55, Korea, and let's get back. So this is, I saw this video before because I was researching this for Mike. So yeah. And he would have fought in Lebanon before he would have gotten into the 60s, where somewhere in here. Now I have between 61 in the Bay of Pigs and 65. This is where the meteorite strikes. Around 63, 64, something like that. Early 60s, maybe even 62, 63, 64. I'm trying to get my timeline together. So anyway, this is what we've got. Sorry for slowing it down, but we've been at war constantly for years. Ever since this country first started, there's always been some kind of war that we've been engaged in. And this is probably, we needed governments, but now the wars have changed. We don't use the same tactics. We don't put as many men on the ground because they're using drones and all of that. So invasions to this country is what we really need to be aware of, or why we wouldn't be needing governmental oversight, especially a strong governmental oversight, if there was a possibility that people were going to be invading this country. And I don't think that's going to ever happen. I guess that's the end of it. Yeah. Hold on, let me see. There's the last. Here it is. There's the last. Liberia, Syria, Iraq. These are the last wars. Of course, except for Afghanistan and all of that stuff like that. 2015. This is probably, Afghanistan's probably been in here. American led. Yeah, Iraq, Syria. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about as far as needing a government oversight as far as wars and stuff like that. People don't need that anymore. We don't engage in that kind of war. There won't be a war on the land of the United States of America like that anymore, unless it's a civil one. We don't engage like that. So that's why they can allow women into the military, because there's not going to be that type of war. It's going to be drones and nuclear shit. Missiles, drones, and stuff like that. So the world is changing. That's why you see these actions being taken as far as wanting women to get in the military. Otherwise, they would never let that happen, because you know that women are not going to be able to survive. They're not going to be able to survive. And I don't know why every time I get on here, it's like I got allergy or something like that. As soon as I start talking on this thing, I got drips and dribbles. It doesn't matter when it is. It's just every time. I don't think you people want to hear me clear my nasal passages, so The mute button. Don't listen. All right, I'm back, people. Hold on, let me see if make sure that. Let me see if I got myself together. Got myself together. Yeah. Yeah, I got myself together. I'm just making sure because I had a problem with the live stream. I had a kind of a problem with the live stream the other day on my other channel, and my volume, my sound just went out for the whole stream, and I didn't know. So I got to keep checking to make sure that my volume is working, my sound is working. So yeah, government is something that we think that we need. Well, we're so used to having the and now we're secured within our borders, except for letting all of these foreigners in to take over stuff that we don't have. We struggling with everything, but we keep letting. The thing that bothers me with letting people in is if they're all running from other countries, how much we can't be the world. So why do we keep letting all these countries, all these people in from other countries just on GPs? Maybe back when we was a smaller entity and we needed people, yeah, of course, give us your tired, your sick, your all of this, and your huddled masses and all of that. Yeah, we could needed it now, but now all we're doing is burdening ourselves with a lot of people running from other countries. We can't be, and meanwhile, all of our jobs are going overseas. So what are we supposed to do for jobs with all of these people? And the government is not taking any of this into consideration. All they doing is trying to dictate things so that they can line their pockets, because the government is all about, because they don't create anything. So the only way for them to get money is by taking it from us. And that's what they do. You see them unbelievable spending habits that's been going on lately. And I'm a black man. You might expect me to say, yeah, give me money. But I tell you, I didn't get not one dime of that stimulus from the I didn't apply for it. I didn't try to get it because I don't want none of their money, because I know they're going to come with some kind of stipulation. You're going to have to get it back at some point or another. That's just not free money. And I know that for a fact. The government don't never give you no fucking free ass money. There's some level or another, they coming back for that cash one way or another. I should have probably gotten the money, because they probably going to take it from me one way or another anyway. So, but the government is bloated. It is out of control. We don't need it in the way that we needed it years ago, because they're not doing anything, especially in the last 10, 20 years. They've been so busy fighting to make sure nobody gets anything done. And when they do get in there, they're all of these executive orders to make sure that they can get what they want done. And basically is all spending money. The Republicans give away money to their friends, and their rich friends who make sure that policy, and then they give the money, they pay them large salaries in lobbying fees and all of that stuff like that to make sure that they vote the way they want to. So that's a big hand in hand fuck you to the American people. The government is not your friend. It hasn't been from the very beginning. Oh, that's what I was looking for. That's another thing that I should have set up. The Constitution. That's what I was looking for. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The Constitution is just a piece of paper. Now, don't get me wrong, Constitution. I understand that it's a part of our our freedoms and supposed to set up our systems of freedoms and all of this stuff. But this is how I look at it. There is no piece of paper in existence that can embody freedom. You could put up the Bill of Rights, but as soon as you start talking about rights, especially in most countries, if you talking about, oh, I've got the right to this, I got the right, no, that means you don't have the rights. It means that you was given those rights by someone. And if you are given anything, how could they give you something that you already have naturally? When you are born, you're free. Every animal on the planet is free to do what it wants, but people have come along and they created our so-called society because we're a bunch of fucking cowards. We can't fucking survive on our own. We've taken over so much of the world to where it's become a big scab on the planet, and that's all we are. It is, to me. The government has, people have become a big, a scab. We've been doing nothing but destroying. We take from the ground. This is what happens when you get like a skin disease. It takes the natural resources of your body, right? And it turns it against itself. And that's what humans do. We take the natural resources from the ground and we turn it against the planet. So concrete and asphalt and all of these things and radiations and all of these things, and we put it into we create a scab on the surface of the planet with all these cities and roads and all of that. Yeah, we think it's a nice thing. But and I'm not, trust me, I'm not no tree hugger. I am not no tree hugger. And the government is all in it for the money. All they care about is the money. That's what it's, and if we were so smart as a people, why wouldn't we be able to see that what we do is causing more turmoil and destruction than anything else? So let me see if I can show you about let's get a little sound. I don't know. Let's get a little sound here. And this one talks about the Constitution. So let's go in here and see what we're gonna hear.
It's Crash Course U.S. History, and today we're going to talk about the United States Constitution. And in doing so, we're going to explore how the American style of government became the envy of the entire world, so much so that everyone else copied us. What's that, Stan? We're not going to talk about other countries stealing our form of government because no other country stole our form of government? That doesn't seem possible, Stan.
Yeah, well, they're gonna get. He's gonna get into it right here.
So today we're going to learn why the green areas of not America didn't copy us. All right, so as Americans may dimly remember from history classes, the constitutional system we've been living under since 1788, the year of the first presidential election, was not the original American government. The first government set up by the Continental Congress was called the Articles of Confederation, and it was...
Hold on. It was not the original government. They tried different styles of government. And they just settle on this because that's what worked best. So does it work best now? They tried different. Why can't we try something else now? Why do we have to keep going with this same government? This is what I wonder. How come we so set? We so accustomed to this style of government, even though it's clearly not working, especially for this day and age. I had to get a little bit of libation, people. Woo! Okay.
In a word, bad. In 2 words, it was not good, which is why it only lasted 10 years. And it was, in a word, bad. In 2 words, it was not good, which is why it only lasted 10 years. The problem with the Confederation is that it wasn't so much a framework for a national government as it was a firm league of friendship, which unfortunately only sounds like a team of care superheroes. The article set up a government that consisted of a one-house body of delegates, with each state having a single vote, who, acting collectively, could make decisions on certain issues that affected all the states. There was no president and no judiciary. You can try to tell me that John Hanson, the president of the Congress, was the first American president, but it's just not true. Any decision required 9 of the 13 congressional votes, which pretty much guaranteed that no decisions would ever be made. Supermajorities.
You see, everything is about setting it up so that you can't get anything done. And that's where we are now. They got it set up so that we're fighting against ourselves. It's not set up to get things done. It's set up so that you don't get things done.
Always so efficient. But besides the 2/3 requirement, the Congress was very limited in what it could actually do. The government could declare war, conduct foreign affairs, and make treaties. Basically the stuff you need to do to go to war with England. It could coin money, but it couldn't collect taxes. That was left to the states. So if you needed money to, say, go to war with Britain, you had to ask the states politely. The articles could be amended.
That's what it should be. You see, that's what it should be. We have to give you our money? That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. They should not be. That's what I'm saying. Why should we keep going with these forms of government? It makes no sense to me.
But that required a unanimous vote, so 0 amendments were ever passed. The government was deliberately weak, which followed logically from Americans' fear of tyrannical governments taxing them and quartering soldiers in their houses and so on. But here's the thing, weak government is like non-alcoholic beer. It's useless. That said, the Article's government did accomplish a couple things. First, it won the war, so yay! Unless you were a slave or a Native American, in which case, probable boo. Second, the government developed rules for dealing with one of the most persistent problems facing the new nation, Ohio, which was called the Northwest, presumably because it is north and west of Virginia. Getting control of the land meant taking it from the Indians who were living there, and the Article's government was empowered to make treaties, which it did.
So you can see that the United States is built on taking shit. So let's get that straight right away. I'm not here to put down America for anything or put down white folk for anything, because it is what it is. That's what made America. And we can't look back and say naughty now. But what I'm talking about is it's now something, it's controlling us. It's always been that way. It's always been meant to control the people.
Crash Course World History fans will remember the Athenians telling the Melians that the strong do as they can and the weak suffer what they must. And the Americans definitely went to the Athenian school of treaty making. Through treaties signed at Fort Stanwix and Fort McIntosh, the Indians surrendered land north of the Ohio River. The biggest accomplishment of the Article's government was the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, which set up a process to create 5 new states between the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. 2 things to know about this. First, it acknowledged that American Indians had a claim to the land and that they had to be treated better if settlers wanted to.
How do they have a claim to the land? They have it all. This makes no sense to me, but that's what the government does. I was getting ready to argue the point about whether the rights of Native Americans or not, but you don't have any rights, man. That's what I'm saying. You don't have no rights. If it can be taken away, you don't have rights.
avoid violence. And second, Dan, can I get the foreshadowing filter? Yes, perfect. The ordinance outlawed slavery in all 5 of the new states. Still, the Articles government was a complete disaster for exactly one reason: it could not collect taxes. Both the national government and the individual states had racked up massive debt to pay for the war, and their main source of revenue became tariffs. But because Congress couldn't impose them, states had to do it individually. And this made international trade a total nightmare, in fact worsened by the British being kind of cranky about us winning the war and therefore unwilling to trade with us. In 1786 and 1787, the problem got so bad in Massachusetts that farmers rose up and closed the courts to prevent them from foreclosing upon their debt-encumbered farm. This was called Shays' Rebellion after Revolutionary War veteran and indebted farmer Daniel Shays. The uprising was quelled by the state militia, but for many, this...
So, because the government had a debt. See, this is what's wrong with money. See, otherwise, there is no debt when you don't have money. And this is back then when they used gold and silver and very little paper, I would assume. And
was the sign that the Articles government, which couldn't deal with the crisis at all, had to go. But not for everyone. Thomas Jefferson, for instance, was a fan of Shays' Rebellion. A little rebellion now and then is a good thing. The tree of liberty must...
Now, if you don't have money, then all you need is the labor. And I know that sounds a lot more like slavery, but if the people choose to do the work in order to keep, like, say we get rid of money in America. Say just in America we don't use money. Then we can produce our own shit. And I know that's a recipe for a lot of corruption, but it's already corrupt, and it's corrupt to the point to where we're working for people, we're enslaving ourselves to corporations just for the sake of saying that we're free, and we're not, because we have to work for other people, for the government, for these corporations who then get everything and we get nothing. We think we're getting something because we get what? A big screen TV, a cell phone, the internet. We know, and not even the internet, but the Facebook. This is what we need.
Be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Which is all fine and good. I mean, unless you're the bleeding patriots or tyrants. But to most...
People just don't get the power. Like you see, the government had no power. And we gave them the power. They couldn't do anything. You see, back then, they couldn't collect taxes. They couldn't force people to do shit. And that's how it should be today. You couldn't force you to do anything. And that's why I said the government is too big on every level, on state and local and nationally. It's way too big. They can force you to do things that you shouldn't have to be forced into. And I don't believe that in many ways that the government is doing its job. I think it stopped doing its job many years ago after after the wars. I don't think that these last few wars were necessary at all. I think they were set up. It was a setup in order to make money, and like in the long kiss goodnight, it was a fundraiser. I believe that 9/11 stuff. Now, I'm not saying that America set it up. I believe they had to do was sit back and do nothing. And that's where the government is now. It's sitting back and doing nothing over and over, all while passing laws, restricting your freedom, and reaping all of the financial benefits.
Post-elite, Shays' rebellion showed that too much democratic liberty among the lower classes could threaten private property. Also, people who held government bonds were nervous because without tax revenue, they were unlikely to get paid back. And when rich people feel like something has to be done, something is usually done.
You see, even back then, the government was run by rich folks. The government is run by the rich, the elite, not by the regular folks. And that's what we need, regular folks. And I'm not talking about people who don't understand how to get shit done. I'm talking about people who are intelligent, who not a bunch of dudes that don't know how to do anything. We need to get ourselves in a position to where we can do this stuff ourselves, because all we need to do is keep the infrastructure going. And then after that, we can bring back all of the corporate jobs, or the manufacturing jobs back to the United States, and we can do the work. All we have to do is implement the jobs, and then make sure that we don't need to kill ourselves in that way. Imagine if you bring back a lot of the manufacturing jobs. The only thing that we would have to really do is to find a way to get around the carbon footprint. But outside of that, bring back the corporate. We need to start making our own textiles. We need to start making all of the things that we need instead of shipping these jobs overseas, because, and even then, a lot of the jobs will be automated. You see, even McDonald's is getting rid of a lot of positions. So if you keep getting rid of jobs and keep getting rid of jobs, what's going to happen to the people? And the government does not care. You can see they don't care. They're putting people out of work left and right over mandates, and they don't care about you.
Let's go to the thought bubble. The first attempt to do something was a meeting in Annapolis in 1786 aimed at better regulating international trade. Only
what they mean is better getting money from the people of the United States in order for the government to become more powerful. And that's what happened when they edited all of these, they edited the government and they made it stronger. With the Constitution and all of that, what they did was make the government stronger so that they could take.
States sent delegates, but they agreed to meet the next year in Philadelphia to revise the Articles of Confederation. The delegates who met in Philly the next year had a funny definition of revision, though. Rather than make tweaks to the Articles, they wrote a new charter.
Hold on, let me see. I gotta check this out. Let me check for 1 second, people. I just want to make sure. All right.
Of revision, though.
All right. I just want to make sure that we're still running, because the last time I showed a video, man, I got crushed.
Of government, the Constitution, which is, with some significant alterations, the same one that Americans live under and argue about today. Despite what some seem to believe, the 55 men...
And I don't see why people should be arguing. It's just a piece of paper. I don't understand this thing. We put so much faith and trust in a piece of fucking paper. Like a piece of paper can hold your freedom, or a piece of a document can embody rights and freedoms and liberties. You're supposed to be free. If you're supposed to be free, why do you have to write it down? Like that, like writing it down cements your freedom. I don't get it. And that's what bugs me out about. That's why I call it the Matrix doctrine. That's why I call it living in the Matrix, because we really have been drinking the Kool-Aid. We really believe that government, we believe in the government. We really strongly, but it's just a bunch of people. It's just people. Just like you, and you give them your power. And I don't understand. That's what this channel is about. It's about power. That's what Mike, the graphic novel. See, this is something that we should.
Who met in Philadelphia and hammered out a new form of government needed to never pass.
Oops. Hold on, I skipped over something. Here we go.
Some seem to believe the 55 men who met in Philadelphia and hammered out a new form of government were not gods, but they were far from ordinary, especially for the time. Most were wealthy, some very...
You see, most was wealthy. We've been having, from the very beginning, we've been having ourselves, we've been getting dictated to by wealthier people. People, elite people, people of status, people who don't care about us. Only reason why they care about the little folk is because little folk is the ones that make it all happen. Where do they get their food supplies from? By trying, like they said earlier, by taking farms and stuff like that. Taken from private property. Now, they wasn't able to collect taxes. People had private property. You think that without that they can just have eminent domain and come and take your shit? You had the right to fight back. That's what the Second Amendment was all about back then. You had the right to fight back. If somebody came to you and told you, yo, we taking your shit, you would be like, get the fuck out of here. You best flip out. You know, get the fuck up out of here. You can't do that. But now, if they say eminent domain, you just out of there. You just, how is that better? How is it better? How is a government that has this much power that can just stop you from working, put you in debt, like these last few years? They put how many people out of business? How many people lost their jobs? How many people are in debt, and they're still doing it? They're arresting people in Canada for trying to stand up for themselves and say we don't want these mandates no more. We want to live a regular life. If we want to, if it's up to us how we live our life. If we want to die, we want to die. That's on us. We're taking that risk, but they're saying no. You can't take no risk. We're the government. That's what I'm saying. How are you free? How are you free? Because a group of people are cowards, scared of a cold, and they start dictating. When has it been any time in human existence that we don't have the right to say, fuck you, fuck up out of here, stand up and fight? The thing that bothers me is that at one point, you see, I keep that, and I know that people are not going to say, this is not the time. Well, I don't believe in time. You see, if you watch the Matrix Doctrine, I don't really believe in time. I think time is something that people made up. A lot of another thing. It's part of those systems of control. So I don't believe. So somebody says, "Oh, this is 2020." Nah, you don't know what it is. But we do know that the government is doing things, is spending money left and right, is putting us in debt, and we don't know why. Putting us in massive debt. And they are so much in control of everything, and we have no control over anything. They get rid of our jobs and then say, deal with it.
Much so, more than half had college educations, which was super rare since 0.001% of Americans attended college at the time. About 40%.
See, so even back then, they didn't need no college educations. All you needed to be is have money and have power. Know people. You didn't need no education and all of that in order to be at the top. Even back then, but they push, and you get into debt. See, all of these things should be free. All of these things, and that's in the world that I'm talking about, in the New World Order. We would take care of ourselves. We would educate, because it's us who's doing everything. We are the teachers. We are the doctors. We are the military. We are everything. They are nobody. Without us, there is no military. Without us, there are no police. So how could the police be an arm of the government? As soon as we get the job, we say, fuck the world, we're fucking the government. You take the job of because that's all it is. Soldiering is a job. So you take the job back. Maybe it was patriotism back in the day, but now it's just a job.
Brent had served in the army during the war.
So it's just a job. We take these positions and then we become an arm of the government and willing to subjugate everybody else for what? It's just people. So why can't we just work together to build what we need? And then we live for free. We live free and we live for free. Because then we don't need. See, when do you need money? You don't. All you have to do is make the products and put it out there. Make the products and put it out there. We can sell it to the rest of the world. But for the United States, and I know that's the biggest thing. Oh, we sell to each other. We sell it in the United States and the world. So you don't want to get rid of, we don't want to lose out on those billions. But we don't need the billions. If we keep it in the coffers so that the people of America could travel, we could go to other countries, right? That's where we would be selling our goods to other countries. We make massive, it'll be way cheaper because we're not using the same system. We would be way cheaper. We would have we would be able to sell, we would be able to undercut every market, right? Because there's no labor, there's no funds for labor. All we doing is taking shit and making shit, because that's what it essentially is. Then we put a price on it. Some make-believe price, some make-believe worth, value. We attribute some make-believe value to the things that we make, that we invented, and then we sell it to each other. Okay, that's a great way of doing things for some imagined. See, back in the days when we did things, we bartered. But here, this is a value. This is what we agreed to be an equal trade, and that's what we did. We traded for the things we needed. Now, if the rest of the world decided to get up on the same types of things, yeah, we need to go back to a bartering system, because this money system is not working. It's putting too many people in control that does not belong in control. It sets up too much corruption. Look at the BLM. This is another thing that I'm talking about as far as governmental control. They talk about having women in control and in power. And then as soon as they get control and power of something, they go corrupt. Now you see this BLM, the corruption that's being coming out, that they're buying up all of this real estate with money that should have gone to help people and for themselves. So how are they any better? How are they any better than men? So I don't believe putting people in control over us is the way. We need people, we need the government to be the bookkeepers that they are and give people the rights. See, now you're going to see in this video that what they set up is the Conservative Party is meant to keep you from becoming too free. That's what the Conservative Party was all about. And then the Labor Party was the Democrats. Is supposed to, and matter of fact, I think it was the Democrats who was supposed to be the restrictors, the conservatives, and the Republicans who were supposed to be the Labor Party, who wanted to give more to the laborers of the country.
But one thing they all shared was a desire for a stronger national government. The delegates agreed on many things. The government should have executive, legislative, and judicial
You
branches.
see, and they determined this. The government themselves determined this, and we gave them that power because we needed it. We needed them to have strength to defend us and set up stuff for as far as fighting the wars. So this is why we needed the government.
Branches and should be Republican with representatives rather than direct democracy, but the devil appeared in the details. Alexander Hamilton, probably the biggest proponent of very strong government, wanted the president and Senate to serve life terms, for example.
See, they wanted to create kings and queens and tyrants, and that's the same way that they're trying to do today. They're trying to set up kings, queens, and tyrants. Now, it doesn't matter to me who's in office. I believe both sides are working against the middle to bring about the same types of results. I believe, to me, and I believe that no matter who is in office, whoever gets in office, no matter if it's a Republican or it's a Democrat, that's who they intended to be in office. That's just how I believe things. I don't believe this whole voting and everything is worth shit. I believe, depending on who's up on deck at the time, the person who they intended to get into office gets into office, because it's a check and balance. Democrats supposedly be for the people, and the Republicans is about conservatism, keeping the people from having too much freedom that would create a chaos. What right do you have? Now we're gonna see that here.
Idea went nowhere because the overarching concern of almost all the delegates was to create a government that would protect against both tyranny by the government itself and tyranny by the people.
Tyranny by the people. Now, if we wanted to create tyranny by the people, there's millions more of us than the government. There's millions more than us than the military. So if we want the people, what they're trying to do is create more power for them, period. But there's no tyranny from the people. Maybe at one point, but that's because back then they're trying to set up, give us money. They're trying to set up that you gotta give us money. So of course they're gonna want to stop the people from uprising against the shit that they don't want to do.
They didn't want too much government, but they also didn't want too much democracy, which is why our presidents are still technically elected not directly by regular people, but by 538 members of the Electoral College.
Another thing that I think is absolutely absurd. We need to get rid of this Electoral College, because it's set up in order to give certain people an advantage or an even to give the rich a say so, because you got to remember it's the rich against the poor, and there's way more poor than the rich. So the rich party has a party over here. In order for them to get a vote, they set up this electoral college that allows the rich to have a bigger say so. They get more votes with one person say so. One person gets more votes because of this electoral college shit. But they break down into they break down the states or the areas into divisions, which essentially gives groups of people more power in a section over others who have more people in their sections. So if you win the electoral college, it automatically shifts all votes over to you. Why couldn't it just be one person, one vote? Because they know it'll never go their way. The votes will never go their way if it was one person, one vote per person, and that's how it's counted. And that's why I say, if it's set out on itself, on its face, as as non-free. Not if there's a check or weight added to the scales on one side or the other, then it can't possibly be beneficial. And that's what we've been dealing with the whole time. Otherwise, the voting would never be equal.
This system is so Byzantine and strange that when American politicians speak of spreading democracy through the world, they never actually advocate for American-style elections. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Yes, I know, you have fantastic elections in Canada. Yeah, right, okay, all that too. I get it. Okay, it's U.S. history, Thought Bubble. So,
see, I don't think we need to elect people. I think we need to appoint people, they do the job, and then they get the fuck out. Because what we have now is the president gets voted in and out 4 years, but all of the people behind the president, all those government, the House of Representatives and the Congress, all these people, or whatever the three the legislature and all of that, they stay there year after year after year after year after year after year. They have votes, but very rarely are these people supplanted, replaced, voted out. We need to appoint people, let everybody get their shot, and to appoint them into accountant. Making sure that certain people get certain things when they're supposed to get it. Because if we're supposed to be free, that means the government's job is to make sure that we get the things that we need. Period. There should not be no oversight. See, you got to remember that back in this period, in this time, it was heavily religious. Heavy religious. Everybody here was based on some kind of religious belief system, probably Christianity of some kind. Right? So if that's the case, right? If that's the case, that most of these people were highly religious and their belief as conservatism was keeping you from straying from beliefs. Because that's what conservatism is, keeping you locked in to your beliefs. And that's what they did. That's what conservatism is.
Conflicts between competing interests arose quickly at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, the first being between states with big populations and those with small populations. Large states...
See? So states with big populations would overwhelm states with small populations. So they gave states with small populations more voting power.
Supported James Madison's Virginia plan, which called for a two-house legislature with representation in both proportional to a state's population, and smaller states, fearing that the big boys would dominate, rallied behind the New Jersey plan. New Jersey. This called for a single legislative house with equal representation for each state, as with the Articles of Confederation. But of course, coming from New Jersey, it had no chance of succeeding, and sure enough, it didn't. Instead, we got the Great Compromise, brokered by Connecticut's Roger Sherman, which gave us two houses: a House of Representatives with representation proportional to each state's population, and a Senate with 2 members from each state. House members, also called congressmen, served 2-year terms, while senators served 6-year terms, with 1/3 of them being up for election in every 2-year cycle. The House was...
See, now, that shouldn't be that way. Everybody should get the same terms, and everybody should get the fuck out. There shouldn't be nobody that stays in there for 10, 12, 20 years. There should never be that. See, these are checks and balances to make sure that corruption can be minimized. Get these motherfuckers out that are cemented into governmental positions. Why should they keep their positions? We need to keep people out of there from being able to cement positions and dominate or dictate policies. It shouldn't be no policies or laws. The Constitution is supposed to be what? We make no laws that restrict the freedom of the people, but that's all they do. That's all the government does is create laws restricting the rights, the freedoms of people. every time you turn around. That's why you see laws being made like excessive honking so that they can ticket you. Who can determine what excessive honking is? So that's up to the police officer at the time who's giving you a ticket. Why should they have that power to be involved in your life? And that's an arm of the government. Laws are all created by some system of the government, either local or national. And this is why we are in the situation that we're in, because we give them our power and it's too much.
Designed to be responsive to the people, while the Senate was created.
When do they respond to the people? They're supposed to represent us, but they don't. Once they get into office, they do whatever the fuck they want. You can see it with the mandates.
To never pass anything, and it was so masterfully designed that it still works to this day. However,
they don't get anything done. And that's not what it's supposed to be about.
Never pass anything, and it was so masterfully served 6-year terms, with 1/3 of them being up for election in every 2-year cycle. The House was designed to be responsive to the people, while the Senate was created to never pass anything, and it was so masterfully designed that it still works to this day. However,
now why?
This solution,
why? What do you have to pass? Laws. There shouldn't be any laws being made. There shouldn't. If there's all of these little things that they try to come up with time and time again, restricting your freedoms, talking about this and that and time and no, people should be free no matter what. You should not be making laws restricting the freedoms of people, period. What we should be doing is having the freedom to move about, because just like in the early days, before the government got any power, people were here and they were living without laws, without police. There was no policing and all of that. There was military, yeah, but there was no policing. You had to do that yourself. You had to control things for yourself. There was no police system. And who do you think that the police system is against? It's against you. You think that police know who's a criminal and who's not? No, you are the criminal that any person that they look at is a potential criminal. So the government, the police, all of these systems, they're not for you. They're not working for you. They're working against you. And that's the facts. You think the police operate the way they do because they know who the criminals are? No, every person they look at is a potential person. They say that the job is so stressful and all of this because they have to look at everyone as somebody who's potentially wants to harm them. Everybody. They have no choice. And that's what's wrong with having a police system. Because the system is set up to where they have to be, you are the enemy. You are the person that they're making laws against. It's the public. The public is the one that they look at. You see how many laws are by everyday people to where police are being pushed into your lives. From child support, in your family, in your very home, how you treat your children. Everything is dictated by laws and people. Why should they be so much in your life? And now, when I was young, I was able to get beatings. Now, you see all of these parents that don't believe in hitting their children, don't believe, and then if somebody sees you hitting it, they call the government, and they put the government in your life. Now you're gonna tell me that people was abusing their children to the point to where it was more than what, 10, 15, 20% of the public? No, they made these laws for a few cases that popped up that had people all aghast. Oh, how dare you? And it's probably minorities and poor people who was beating their children because of rich people, you know, and then the rich people make laws against the poor people. How dare you? You know, and that's how the government is. You put people, give them the power, and then they use it against you. And that's what happens with the government.
Created another problem: who should be counted in terms of representation? Slaveholding states wanted slaves to count toward their population, even though, of course, they could not vote because they were property. States with few slaves argued that slaves shouldn't be counted as people because, just to be clear, none of these dudes were not racist. This issue was solved with the notorious 3/5 compromise for the purpose of determining...
Now, this is what your government, and I believe that this 3/5 stuff is still on the book somewhere.
The population, the total number of white people plus 3/5 the population of other persons, the word slave was never used, would be the basis for the calculation. So, yeah, that's still in the Constitution.
That's still in the Constitution. But has there been an amendment? See, I don't believe in this paper bullshit. I don't believe that somebody writing something down makes something a reality. But that's what we've done. We've made up words. All of the words on the Constitution are made up. 100%. So the government is made up. The whole system is made up in order for it to operate and to give itself power. Because we giving it power. We need to elect the president. Why? Why do we need to elect the president? Why? So many people. Why can't we just, and this is not our culture. We don't need this to run our country. You can see that this country has had several different operating systems as far as if you want to talk about it in that way. So why can't we just shift to another operating system that can work better for now? And I'm not talking about overthrowing anything. Just tell them the government we don't want to do this shit no more. And of course it's gonna fucking try to rebel, but all we have to do is say no and stop working. That's all we have to do. We don't have to fight anybody. All we have to do is say no. We're not gonna work. You can see it's doing it happening right now, but we just have to give up the right. Everybody has to be on board. Everybody. But that's not the problem. People want to live in the matrix. People want to live in the matrix. And that's what the problem is. We want that whole American dream. We want to be rich. We want to believe we can have power like that. And it should be back to how it was back in the day. Everybody has individual power. And that's what it is. You see, back in the days, you was responsible for going out and hunting for yourself and providing for yourself. But that's when the world was less populated. See, now with the way the world is, we so overpopulated that we can't run the world the way it was. To just go out into the wild and hunt up some food because we wiped out all of the fucking wildlife. To where we have to supplement our food with the farming. We have to. And now they're talking about getting rid of beef and meat and just living off of vegetation. It's absolutely ridiculous. But I'm going to talk about that later on, probably later on in the week. I want to have a live stream to where we talk about the global warming and all of that type of stuff like that, because we really need, because that's what's pushing this, and the government's jumping on board with that. And that's another thing, how the government jumps on board with people who are basically basically, let's leave that on. It's been on the whole time, so let's leave it on. So, yeah, let's keep
The
going.
Constitution also contains a fugitive slave clause requiring any escaped slave to be returned to their master. And this
is just like the Bible. This is the reason why I don't believe in religion, because the Bible says the same thing. Honor your masters and all of that. And how could the Bible say anything about being a slave and just sitting there and taking it? It's absolutely ridiculous. That's why it's because it was written by men who owned slaves. So of course they would say that. But people don't want to date. You can't mess with people's religions and their belief systems, because people are just stuck. That's what's wrong with humans. We get stuck in this way of believing things, and we get comfortable, and we don't want to see change. We don't like change. And that's what the wild is all about. There's always something new. You think the forest stayed the same? There was always something happening. A storm would come through, knock down a whole lot of trees and shit. New trees would grow up. Everything would change. Animals moved around differently because of that. Storms and different things, so you had to hunt differently. Migrations, you had to follow migratory animals, so maybe not necessarily you could stay in one place. You had to migrate. That's what Native Americans did. They followed the buffalo. And so when the buffalo migrated, they migrated. Because that was their food source. But when you start farming, and now, you can't farm. Why? Why can't you farm? It's not because the whole thing with global warming and all of this, and the government too. The whole thing with all of these things is people. There's too many of us. It's not that. It's not manufacturing. It's not pollution. It's none of these things. It's not. It is pollution, but of course it's not. Let me get to my point. It's not pollution. It's not global warming. It's not all of these things. It's people. There's too many of us to where we need to produce all of this excess emissions, excess everything, in order to feed, clothe, sell to us. There's so many of us, there's so many billions of us that the planet can't clean this shit out. We wiped out but that's not the government. Let's get back. We wiped out all of the things that help to clean the system, to clean our environment to the point to where it can't sustain itself. And now we need to get in there. But if we would just not be as many of us, then all of these things would correct itself.
Meant that a slave couldn't escape slavery by moving to a state where slavery was outlawed, which meant that on some level, some states couldn't enforce their own laws. Spoiler alert, this becomes problematic. But except for the tyranny of slavery, the framers really hated tyranny. To avoid tyranny of the government, the Constitution embraced two principles: separation of powers.
You see how when somebody wants something, and this is where the government is off the rails. Because when they want something, they'll bend over backwards to ignore it. No matter what laws are on the book, or no matter what their intentions are, they will bend over backwards, just like slavery. And it's the same thing today. They are bending over backwards to enslave men to women because of the money that women generate. Women spend more money. Look at the money that women spend on themselves alone. lip injections, hair extensions, fingernails, makeup, clothing. Men don't spend money like that. Men don't spend money like that. And that's why the government is bending over backwards to give everything as far as power. And that's why we're going to talk about power and women not having power, because women don't have any power. They don't. They claim to, but they don't. Men give them power. And that's what, in working hand in hand with corporations, the government is giving power to women. And for the sole fact to give power to the corporations. Women having power gives corporations and the government more power because women are weaker. Period. That's just what it is. The government and corporations are big daddy and big brother to women. And so the only power that women get is from big daddy government and corporations who need them in order to build their financial coffers, because women generate sales. They buy. They spend money like it's going out of style.
And federalism. The government was divided into three branches: legislative, executive, and judiciary. And the Constitution incorporated checks and balances. Each branch can check the power of the others. The legislature can make laws, but the president can veto those laws. The judiciary can declare laws void too, but that's a power they had to grant themselves. You won't find it in the Constitution. I promise, you can look for it. And federalism is the idea that governmental authority rests both in the national and the state government. As an American, I am a citizen both of the United States and of the state of Indiana. And the national government, the one set up by the Constitution, is supposed to be limited in scope to certain enumerated powers. Most other powers, especially the protection of health, safety, and morals, are left to the states. But the Constitution also seeks to protect against the radicalism that too much democracy can bring. The mostly rich framers worried that
What is that? What is too much democracy? This is what I'm talking about. The government is set up to keep you from being free. What is too much democracy? And this is what I'm talking about. There's laws from back then, religious laws from back then that still apply today in your law system. That's why the whole conservatives, I don't believe in that shit. You have no, what gives you, the government, the right to tell you how to conserve my life? And that's what the government does. These laws and all of that, as far as Roe v. Wade and who's right to the body and all of that crap, comes from religion, and which was heavily influencing our government back in this era. And we still focus on these things. Someone else telling you what you can and can't do. How is that a thing? This is what I'm saying.
The people, many of whom were poor and indebted, might vote in congresspeople or, God forbid, a president in favor of, redistribution of property. To hedge against this, senators were elected by the states, usually by state legislatures, and they were supposed to be leading citizen types. You know, the kind of good Americans who take bribes and have adulterous affairs in airport bathrooms and patronize prostitutes and shoot Alexander Hamilton. Anyway, the other hedge against too much democracy is the aforementioned Electoral College, which many Americans hate because it has the potential to elect a president who did not win the popular vote. But that's kind of the point. The electors were supposed to be prominent, educated men of property who were better able to elect a president than the rabble. But the Constitution of the United States is a really impressive document, especially when you consider its longevity.
It's nothing impressive. It's just somebody's imaginated bullshit. Something somebody pulled out of their ass so that they can dictate over the rest of us. You gotta remember, it was only 13 states back then along the eastern seaboard. And those 13 states went on to take over the rest of the United States, wiping out how many nationalities? restricting them to, and not only that, in the process, destroying the wilderness. Imagine how many forests from that time in these last 2.5 years, 250 years, let's say about 250 years, right? No, not even that, 230 years. Let's just give it roughly 220 years, right? Since 1776. 220 years, 240 years, well, now. Okay, 240 years, right? In 240 years, we're still stuck in the same government. And just imagine, okay, this is what I was talking about. And imagine all of the forestry that's been destroyed since 200 years. That's
Jeopardy. I mean, as Crash Course.
sorry about that, but in 200 years, a small thing that's not considered, because you got to remember, the Industrial Revolution is the beginning. So it's only been what, 100, 120, 130 years that we've absolutely destroyed the country. Absolutely destroyed the country. Only in 100 years, with the Industrial Revolution, we polluted everything. So imagine, we wiped out all across the United States the forestry, animal life, and created pollution of all kinds, radiological, chemical, just regular waste. That's polluting the waters all around, polluting everything, right? And we're still talking like we're the best, as if we're the best. I gotta stop using that word, like. As if we're the best thing that ever happened to the world. We're not. Humans are the most destructive, and we're the most arrogant. We truly believe that we're something special, when all we have done is made up a system of lies, a system of make-believe situations, and held everybody to these beliefs and these indoctrinations, because that's what everything is.
Especially when you consider its longevity. I mean, as Crash Course World History fans will remember, the nation state is pretty new on the historical scene, and the United States, established by the Constitution, is actually one of the oldest ones. But the Constitution would be meaningless if it hadn't been ratified, which it was, but not without a fight that helped clarify America's political ideology. 9 out of the 13 states were required to ratify the Constitution, and special conventions called for the purpose. In order to convince the delegates to vote for it, 3 of the framers, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, wrote a series of 85 essays that together are known as the Federalist Papers. Taken together, they're a powerful and ultimately persuasive argument for why a strong national government is necessary and ultimately not a threat to people's liberty. Oh, it's time.
Yes, back then, when you had fighting against, when you're fighting against England and you're fighting against the native people of the country. So yes, back then you might have needed a stronger government. But now that all of that's been taken care of, we're not fighting wars like that. Nobody's going to be coming to the United States to wage war. We got nuclear shit. There's no way anybody's going to come here. We're not going to be fighting hand to hand, street to street, block to block, or in the United States. What's the name of that movie? The Warriors, not the Warriors. But Warriors, no, Wolverines. What was the name of that movie with Patrick Swayze and all of them? They made a remake of it with for Chris Helmsworth. But there's not going to be that type of invasion from the communists and stuff like that. Nobody's going to be coming to the United States to wage war. It's not going to happen like that. It won't. what we have to worry about is us going to other countries to wage war. That's the only war we're going to be facing. And even then, it's going to be this new age of drone war, drone technology. So it's still not going to be the same type of feet on the ground, shooting at each other type of situation. It's not going to be the type of situation like in World War II and all of these other wars we've been fighting. It's changed. The shift is in. That's why they're talking about putting women into the military, because they know that this is not going to happen anymore.
For the mystery document? The rules here are simple. If I name the author of the mystery document, shock as in surprise. If I don't, shock as in all right, Stan, let's see what we got here. If circumstances should at any time oblige the government to form an army of any magnitude, that army can never be formidable to the liberties of the people while there is a large body of citizens, little, if at all, inferior to them in discipline and the use of arms, who stand...
Really? You see this? It says that any army, there should be no army that should be formidable to the citizens. That the people, while there is a large body of citizens, little, if at all, inferior to,
and ready to defend their own rights and those of their fellow citizens. This appears to me the...
You see? The citizens are supposed to have more arms, more training than the military. Am I reading this right? Am I reading this right? The people, while there is a large body of citizens, little, if at all, inferior to them in discipline and the use of arms, who stand ready to defend their own rights and those of their of course, let me turn this off, motherfucker, fellow citizens. This appears to be, to me, the only substitute that can be devised. Now, I think that that's a great thing. Hold on. The army, maybe because I don't necessarily comprehend on the same level, because maybe I'm wrong. Okay, the army of any magnitude oblige the government to form an army of any. Hold on, let me go back just a little bit. Okay.
That army can never be formidable to the liberties of the people while there is a large body of citizens, little, if at all, inferior to them in discipline and the use of arms, who stand...
Okay. I'm understanding it better now. He's saying that they can't create an army that is, even though the body of we have more people, that the army should not be larger or formidable towards the liberties of the people, and that the citizens, even though that the army might be, the people might be more inferior trained than the army. The army should never be a threat to those people.
Ready to defend their own rights and those of their fellow citizens. This appears to me the only substitute to the liberties of the people, while if I don't, shock as in... All right, Stan, let's see. If circumstances should at any time oblige the government to form an army of any magnitude, that army can never be formidable to the liberties of the people while there is a large body of citizens, little, if at all, inferior to them in discipline and the use of arms, who stand ready to defend their own rights and those...
Little... As long as there's a body of people, a body of citizens, little, if at all, inferior to them in discipline and the use of arms, who stand ready. So we should always stand ready to defend ourselves. This is the thing that I think that I've also thought that we needed to do, and is training kids from young, maybe in high school, to use weapons. You train them in the military. Well, maybe we should train. Maybe there should be a mandatory military stint as far as training, going through boot camp and learning how to use arms. And maybe not going into the military. You can stay in once you go, but maybe everybody should go into boot camp. Every child, whether it be man, woman, or because it will teach them discipline and it will teach them how to defend themselves. And then we don't need a government, military to worry about, because right now, that's what we worry about. The government being able to send in troops into our own cities like they do to restrict us. But they can't do that if we're all trained and have weapons of our own. I believe that we should have weapons of our own.
Of their fellow citizens. This appears to me the only substitute that can be devised for a standing army and the best possible security against it, if it should exist. Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton. Yes! Too easy, Stan, although I appreciate the opportunity for a rant. The whole idea of the Second Amendment was that the people could protect themselves from a standing army by being equally well armed, which these days would mean not that citizens should have the right to buy assault rifles, but that they should have the right to buy, unmanned drones. And
bingo! Nah, I don't believe in citizens have the right to own drones. But yes, we should be armed. There should be no taking away our rights to bear armed. There shouldn't be all of these laws against us. We should be able to go into any store and buy a weapon. Just like back in the Western days. Just go put down your cash, buy a weapon, slap leather, baby. If people were all armed, they wouldn't be any. All you need is the same thing that you needed back then. Yo, was it justified? Yeah, man, he drew on me, trying to rob me. That's it. If people get, hey, that's a way of keeping the population from getting out of control. Because that's the problem. Population.
Arguably suitcase nukes. And by the way, in the Constitution, this is not listed as a privilege, it is listed as a right. And as a right, if I can't afford my own Predator drone, I guess the government should buy one for me. It's almost as if Alexander Hamilton had no way of knowing that weaponry would one day advance past the musket. Yes.
See, I don't agree with going that far, that we shouldn't be armed to the teeth, but we should be able to be armed. And that's at least with weapons. And I'm talking about handguns, assault rifles. Yes, we should be able to be armed because the government should not ever have the right to send troops in to force us to do anything like they've been doing with the mandates and all that. Because when this first jumped off and people were protesting against things, you see people in the street. You seen them out there in the rioting and stuff like that. You saw when the National Guard being brought in, and the National Guard is just is still an arm extension of the military.
You know how Alexander Hamilton died? Gunshot! Sorry, I had to. I am on a roll. So it would be easy to ignore the people who oppose the Constitution because, they lost. But some of the ideas of these so-called anti-federalists were particularly powerful, and they deserve a bit of attention. Anti-federalists, unlike the mostly wealthy federalists, were usually supported by common people, small farmers who weren't as involved in commercial activity. They saw less need for a strong national government that would foster trade and protect creditors. And the anti-federalists were very afraid of a strong government, especially one dominated by the wealthy. Writers like James Winthrop.
You see? And that's what we have now. A government dominated by the wealthy, for the wealthy, and does very, very little for the poor. And that's what the Republican Party was supposed to be for. The Republican Party was supposed to be the labor, for the labor people. And then they switched. Somewhere along the line, they switched. And then the elitists was the Democrats. And now they're both elite. they're both for money. So how can we possibly have a government that's for us, by us? And that's why I'm saying we need to get more for us, by us. Now, if we was to have our, say the government was just accounting thing. Now, definitely we need somebody for diplomacy, for foreign diplomacy and stuff like that. We still need that, and we still need military strength. So yeah, okay, you want to get a president to do foreign affairs and ambassadors for foreign affairs, president for foreign affairs, and for military thing, yeah. But and still have a body of people who can restrict him from going too far, doing too much. Sure, I'm 100% with that. But I don't agree with a government that the way that things are now, and the election site system, and where people are cheating, and we have to get rid of that. It has to be one vote party, one vote system, one man, one vote system, and
Held that a large group
and that's it.
of the United States would be like an empire, and that no extensive empire can be governed upon Republican principles. As evidence, he could point to Britain, or all the way back to Rome. Smaller, more local governments are more responsive to the people and better able to protect their rights. To the anti-federalists, that meant state government. And while ultimately the Federalists won out and the Constitution was ratified, the issue of how large government should be did not go away. So the Constitution was really only a starting point. It's a vague document, and the details would be worked out in the political process, and then on the battlefield. Thanks for watching.
And that's the problem, the vague nature of these things. Laws are vague to be interpreted later, and then those laws can be interpreted however they want to do things. And that's what we're seeing a lot of these days. The laws are being interpreted in wild ways. So I don't believe that I believe the government is a system of control. It is set up in a way to screw you around. It's not for you. It's not for the people. It's definitely not set up to keep people free. What it does is the system of control designed to keep them in power and you subjugated to their whims, while they make laws giving power to corporations that work hand in hand with them. And today you see it in many aspects of our lives, with the entertainment and everything, how the government doesn't care about what do you call it? Tyrannicism. It doesn't care about that. When you see what's going on with China and the government, all they care about, the government along with their cronies, the corporations, all they care about is being able to get to the billions of dollars that can be mined from the public, the Chinese. And I believe that that's messed up. I believe that that's not how the government should be working. I don't think we should be turning on, you see the government turning on its people left and right. You see it you see the government turning on its people left and right with the way that we see things happening in the entertainment system and everything. You see a lot more foreigners even in your own movies. American movies are not getting American actors. Tom Holland is a foreigner. I don't know where he lives, and it doesn't really care. Why are Americans not being put in American characters like Spider-Man. This is an American character created by Americans, and now we're not finding Americans to play in these roles. What we're doing is handing them over to foreigners or first generation foreigners, and the people who have been here for years, putting in the time, putting in the effort, working towards being to gaining a higher status so that they can be in these roles and be in these situations, are now being handed off to people who just got to this country a year or so ago, or 2 or 3 years back, or in their lifetime, and now they're getting preferential treatment over people who put in time. That's why I said the government, we should not have people coming to this country just getting dropped in here. The government is not doing its job. They're letting people come over here. We should close our borders. And even if we don't close our borders, we should not be allowing people who come to this country and just get jobs. Okay, they say that they do the jobs that other people don't want to do. Well, then we need to start creating better jobs so that the people who are here, who have already put in the work and who have put in their time and deserve to get jobs, any types of jobs that's available, that should, and I'm not saying that they should get any job, because if you're not qualified, no, you shouldn't get any job. But you are definitely more qualified than some foreigner that just came here, and you should definitely be able to get those jobs, businesses, licenses, whatever. And especially to see how all of these foreigners are being pushed and promoted in our programming, American programming. What you're seeing, all of these foreigners, as if Americans are made up of just foreigners. Americans have been here. There have been people who have been here and who have been suffering for years, and they do not, just like you see a lot of these Asian shows that's coming out now, how much do you see of them that are Asian culture? It's basically just American culture. Like there was Aquafina, this Asian female who's had who all she does is black speak. How is that Asian culture? Why do we need to have Asians just basically doing what everybody else do? It makes no sense to me that we're fighting to put people in power who's not bringing anything different. They're not trying to come in and bring something different. What they're doing is taking away from the people who have already been here and have put in work, who have contributed to the American system, paid taxes, all types of things for generations. Family members upon family members for generations have contributed to the United States, and now they are losing their businesses, losing their jobs, and then you're seeing in movies and TV shows and all types of different things, foreigners, Australians, British, first generation Africans, and all different types of people from foreign countries getting the jobs. I'm talking about the face jobs, the like the movies actors and stuff that's representing these foreigners as if that they're the only ones. What about the people who've been here, who put in the time and put in the work? The government is not protecting us. They're quick to say, yeah, and that's at the behest of the corporations. Our government is not ours. The government is not ours. It's just a system of control to dominate over us while their pals, the corporations, get to do whatever the fuck they want. Dictate laws, restricting your freedom so that they can make money. And that's what I don't agree with. I do not agree with that type of thing. I went long this time because the government is a big thing, and that video was a long. It ran longer than I intended. I kind of got in here late, and that's because I'm not on the ball the way I should be, and I know that. But so these last few minutes, I'm gonna bring up Might, the graphic novel, because I'm trying my best to get this out there. Hold on. Am I back now? Let's see if I'm back. Because this thing killed my stream. Let's see if I'm back. I don't know. I think it killed my stream, man. Let's see what this does. Okay, it's back. This thing killed my stream. I don't know what the fuck happened. All right, I'm back. It removed me, but it's supposed to remove my avatar. I think it's supposed to remove my avatar, but it removed me. Let me see. And it does it again. Yeah, when I remove myself, it does it again. Okay. So I can't do that. I know. I understand that I can't do that. So then how did I remove myself? How do I remove myself in order to show that? So that I could show that. That's ridiculous. They make it so that I should be able to show. I thought I was able to do that before. I could pull myself out, and I think I did that in the beginning of the stream. Hold on, let me turn this off now that I know I got my sound right. I'm supposed to be able to turn off or remove myself so that I could show the background, but now I can't do that. For some reason, it removes me to where you can't hear me at all. And before, I'd be able to speak and show the what's back in on the background and still be able to talk. But now for some reason it scrubs me from the live stream to where I can't talk. All right, so now I have to find a new way of showing. I didn't intend to do that. I have to bring that up here now. I think this is absolutely ridiculous how they, now I have to show it in an overlay. And I think this is an asshole. I used to be able to just show my thing right there. Now you have to go and put it to the back. It's ridiculous. No wonder I see you jumped off, because it's like I already quit the show, and that's not what I did. I was trying to talk about might and what I'm bringing to you, and what I did was just muted myself, because they basically, I used to be able to come in and talk. It's ridiculous. Trying to figure this out. They make changes to the shit, and then they make it impossible for you to, they don't explain nothing to you. They just change shit. Because I remember it, being able to pull myself down and still talk to you guys so that you can see the background and see what I'm trying to show. But now you have to do it in overlays. So I'm pissed because I had a system that I had worked out, and now I have to redo shit because I have to redo things in overlays now, and it makes no sense. Because I'm just trying to talk about might, and they fucked my whole shit up. Trying to bring y'all Might, the graphic novel, and this promo shit. See, it's not even letting me. Yeah, it's not even letting me pull up all of the shit that I have. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's bring this one here. The Might Universe. There it is. Okay, because this is the overlay. Wow, incredible. I used to be able to do this, and now you have to do it in the overlay because you can't hear me now. I could have sworn that before I would remove myself and then you could still be able to hear me. So anyway, Might is what I'm trying to bring to you guys. It's a graphic novel where I'm trying to, it's hard for me to get it took a while for me to get my art together because I had stopped drawing for years, and like back in 2008 or so, I stopped drawing because I figured that I was getting older. I wasn't going to be going to Marvel. I wasn't going to be going to DC. So I didn't have any clue of being able to get my own work out there. And I had my ideas. And I didn't do it when I was a younger man because I heard that Marvel stole ideas. And I didn't know anything about the independent comic book thing. So I kind of just said, oh, well, you got to work, you got to do something. You can't pray and wish on some dream. So I didn't really think much of it. I never really had the dream of being a comic book artist. I just drew because I loved drawing, and I've been drawing practically all of my life. And so getting involved and seeing comics, because I was on YouTube since back then, but I wasn't looking for comic book people. I didn't know comic book people existed on YouTube. And so back in 2019, 2018, and I stumbled onto comic books on YouTube with Comics Explained and then comic book reviews with Zach, your boy Zach, And he led me to Ethan Van Sciver and John Malin and the whole crew of them. And that's when I saw that the comic book industry or the independent comic books were viable. And so that's why I created Mike. I about a year and a half, I say, ever since I'd say Dan Frager let me on his show that October before last, I've been developing Mike. I've been writing a new story, and it's been expanding to where I'm creating more characters and who can, well, I've already created these characters, but I haven't fully fleshed them out. I haven't designed them and all of that thing. So that's what Might is all about. I am bringing that to you. Yeah. So this is what's going to be coming your way. And please subscribe, like, do that YouTube thing so that I could grow this channel and bring Mike to a bigger audience. And yeah, I'm gonna see you guys later. I hope you like the stream. Please like, subscribe, do all of that YouTube thing. And because we're gonna be bringing Mike to you guys. That's why I'm here. That's why we have this channel, so that we can draw and bring Mike to you guys. So I'm out of here. Thanks for coming. Again, subscribe, like, do that whole thing. And what do we have here? What do we have here? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. No, what? Nazrius Vishan Bloomberg. I don't know what the heck that means. So I don't know what that means, you. So I don't know who that was. Maybe it's just to get me to put that up so that you can publicize your own thing. But thanks for coming through, and at least you can like the live stream for me. I showed your shit. You can like my live stream, right? So okay, Mike is gonna be the graphic novel that you guys are gonna be in love with. I guarantee it, because it's gonna have a vast universe. We're gonna have characters that you're gonna love. We have an outer space character. We're gonna have characters on Earth. So we're gonna be able to, by the second campaign, you're gonna have multiple characters to choose from and buy. You don't necessarily have to stick with Mike. By the second Mike campaign, we're gonna have 4 books for you to choose from, or you can collectively get them all. So and that will be the Everman characters, the Everman cameo, and my Nebula character, along with Might and the Might realm. You're gonna have cameo, Everman, and the Nebula character, who I will give you his name when we launch. So we'll dive into his name and his origin stories and all of that. And so that's why I'm doing these matrix doctrines and the power streams and everything, so that I can build a following, so that I can sell Might to more people. So help me out by liking, subscribing, and doing all of that YouTube stuff. And come back next week for another Matrix Doctrine, where we will talk about society, and which is another system of control. And see, all of these things that you hear me talk about on the Matrix Doctrine and all on the power streams, they're all my belief systems that I'm going to be contributing to my characters in the book. So though I might believe these things, I'm not a psycho. I just have beliefs, and I'm going to attribute them to some of these characters. Some of them going to be bad guys. So, well, a lot of them are going to be bad guys, because those are the ones with the off-the-wall ideologies that really bring the strife. So, because the ideologies of your superheroes is not really important. What's important is that they are fighting for good and justice and all of that. That's what superheroes do. Your superheroes are important, but they're not as, their importance very much revolves around the enemies that you create. So your superheroes are are as important as the quality of your enemies that you create. So if you have badass enemies to go against your superheroes, that makes your superheroes that much better. Apocalypse is one of my favorite enemies ever, or bad guys ever, and I believe him, Magneto, stuff like that. Those guys are some of the best characters, I believe, in comic books. So the bad guys, I like the bad guys more than I like the good guys, only because they are the ones you could really get loose with. You could really be free to express a lot with bad guys. Your good guys, they have to be good. Otherwise, they kind of, if they ride too much of that fence of being too dark, it can get kind of crazy. So yeah, so thanks for coming through. I appreciate you guys coming through and hanging out with me, and I hope you like what I've been putting out, and I'm going to try to stay with it so that we can bring Mike to you, because that's what I'm doing all of this for. All right, thanks for coming through, and I'm out of here. Till the next time, peace, y'all.